you introduce yourself?
Sounds good. I'm Brad Butler. I'm the Vice President, Regional Director for Workspace Property Trust here in Minnesota. Probably 4 years ago, Workspace purchased about 10 million square feet of suburban office properties across the country from Liberty Property Trust, who I had worked for 15 years. And locally, we have about 1.5 million square feet, all in Bloomington, Eden Prairie. We've got our own property management staff, building engineers, service techs, et cetera, in a small office in Bloomington. But I oversee the marketing and leasing of our product. It's a couple mid-rise office buildings, and then single-story office, and then some flex buildings, which is kind of a how would I describe it? Low clear. A lot of it has loading docks, drive-in doors, but it is high clear, single story office or higher finish with some potential to have warehouse or call it light manufacturing in the back. So it's a good product type to be in right now. And as I said at the start, that we're activities picked up, and we're looking forward to see what happens this fall.
Well, when you and I chatted, I was telling you that I was talking to a lot of different people in the commercial real estate sector, whether it's a developer or a tenant rep or whatever. And it was so interesting to me because when we were talking, you were experiencing things a bit differently than those that are focused in downtown Minneapolis properties, where it's like, when are we coming back? And are we coming back? And how far, there's just lots and lots of questions. And what's interesting, has been interesting to me, is I get feedback from people, and it is a topic that everybody wants to talk about. And I always think they want to talk about it. When people want to talk about it, it's like there's not an answer and they're searching for an answer. And I've been saying all along, and I'm hearing from people, we don't know. It's going to depend on what your marketplace is, or who your clientele is, or maybe they'll make one decision now, but it might change their mind. So it was interesting to me, and what I wanted you to share is, being that you have a suburban market, is what are you seeing? Who's doing what? Because you had said you were really busy, and truthfully, that isn't a term that most of the people I've been talking to have used. They want to be busy, but it's not like that's where they think they're going. Or if clients had started a project, they might be coming back on it, but they're not going to come back at it at the same, full force. This is what we're going to do, because they're not really sure. So I thought, okay, let's talk about what's going on in other places in the Twin Cities, because I think it's really important for us to get the full picture. And we have, as you know, because I have a client in one of your buildings, we have clients all over the Twin Cities. And if I had to go by where my clients are, I would say, yes, the suburban clients are busy and going full force, but not my necessarily city clients. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing. You said you're busy, and that's all good. So
Yeah, no, there isn't a new norm yet. So it's, when people ask what are tenants doing, it's a full range. I mean, we've had, the 59 tenants we have throughout the COVID. Some of them didn't come in at all. Others, were there the whole time, and others were kind of coming and going throughout the day. As we had expirations happen this last year, we had, the smaller 3,000 square foot tenants and smaller opted to just let their lease run out and work from home. Not the business was bad. They just said, I think it's wise to kind of hunker down at home and see where this pans out and what our needs are in the future. Others have looked to do short-term, 3-year renewals just to wait and see, but they're not necessarily downsizing because they don't know what next fall or this fall looks like, or a year from now. I'm seeing, I guess the good thing about Minnesota is we got such a diverse range of companies. You know, the food companies have done really well during the pandemic. The tech companies, gaming companies in particular, we've got tenants that have done extremely well. Of course, healthcare is doing extremely well. Law firms, financial folks, all doing great. It's, you know, the few tenants that we lost during this, I think we're already having troubles pre-pandemic, and this just kind of forced their hand and sent them home. But again, of this call it 60 tenants we have, they're all paying rent, they're all doing well, and they're waiting to see what's next. But I do think the suburban market has been more active. Part of that is it's closer to where people live. They've been working at home. They've got this new work-life balance. They've got new habits, and I think they enjoy, you know, coming into work at 10 o'clock, leaving at 2, or maybe buckling down for a full, you know, 8 to 5 type of a day. But, you know, I mentioned these new habits. I had showing this morning, law firm, and 2 of them were wearing shorts and flip-flops. And so when we talk about these new habits, it's the idea of, you know, getting into a button-up shirt and wool pants and parking in a parking ramp and walking through skyways and paying for parking. You're kind of there for the day. But I think the suburban feel is you can pop in for a couple hours, run home, let the dog out, you know, go golf 9 holes, go back to the office. So I think it's people have these new habits that have formed over the last year, 18 months that I think the suburban office being closer to home and easier access is attractive right now.
And so are you seeing businesses that have been downtown starting to look in the suburbs?
Well, so the activity is that I'm seeing now is a variety of things. Some of it is downtown companies, I'll call it kicking tires in the suburbs. I wouldn't say I'm seeing a full-on trend of leases getting signed, but I have seen a number of tenants that have, you know, left the downtown for a number of reasons. But I'm also seeing a migration from, say, across the river. I got a couple of prospects looking that are in Shakopee or Burnsville, and like I mentioned before, it's the idea of getting the office closer to the employees. So it is, they want employees back in the office. They want, you know, whether it's every day or just, you know, see them part of the day or every other day, whatever they end up having as their company culture. The idea of locating their office space close to where their employees are at makes it more usable, more efficient, less drive time. And then also you're definitely seeing people upgrade their office space. They're going from a, you know, Class B building, Class C building, even to a Class A building. I think the idea of saving a nickel is not as important as creating a company culture and you know, giving employees a space that they want to come to and kind of enhance the experience versus, as I said, saving a buck by being further out or in a building that doesn't have as many amenities or isn't as well located, et cetera. So I'd say that's the activity. And also, you know, they're right sizing. You know, people are using this as an opportunity to not only move to better office space, but maybe trim it down a little bit with the thought that they're going to have some employees working from home. But it's not, you know, 20% of the employees are going to work from home, so we're going to lop off 20% of our office space. They're also adding, you know, we used to call it collaboration space, probably still call it that, but I think it's giving people some of that work options that they have at home. You know, if they like sitting on the couch with a coffee table in front of them with a laptop, they're going to provide that. If, you know, you're used to working at the kitchen counter, I'm seeing build outs that are putting more money and furniture dollars into that kitchen space, you know, with the booths and the pendant lighting and just a larger area for people to collaborate and work around other people that are kind of coming and going. But other people, you know, depend on, you know, private offices. You know, they can't work at home because of the kids and the dog, and they don't want to come to the office and have that same environment as they're avoiding at home. So you also have to offer some breakout space, private offices, areas that they can kind of buckle down and focus.
You know, it's interesting that what you say is creating a space that employees want to come to. And you may not know this, but I teach a CEU about how art affects your health, your well-being, and your motivation. And it's so what we're all about is creating, enhancing that space that people, if I've been at home, I want it to feel like home. This is what we're hearing. And so you were talking about, I think, a couple of things I think are important, amenities. So what are the top amenities that people are saying, oh, this is what we're going to need if we're going to get people to come back?
Oh, I think it's interesting that the companies themselves, that they really don't know. They're looking at their broker or the landlord or their space planner saying, what should I be thinking about? They might ask their employees, but their employees like being in their, oversized t-shirt and shorts sitting on the couch. Others, as I said, it's about the new habit. So I'm seeing, an example, we have a pickleball court on the top of a ramp of a building we have in Eden Prairie, but as we know, people are playing pickleball at their local community center or outdoor at the high school tennis court. So it's adding something like that can, have a regular game with somebody in the office that helps bring them in and again, talk about work and be together. But, training rooms are huge, and they have been for a while, but the walkability, if you can see a restaurant, even if it's across the highway and you still got to get in your car and drive a quarter mile or a half mile, it's still that perception of having amenities close by. So it's not necessarily amenities within the building, but it's within the area, in the neighborhood. Walking trails are huge. I know a lot of our buildings are tied to city. Eden Prairie has a lot of sidewalks that connect to trail systems that are important. Of course, workout centers, having those within the office building is key, and then food service, to be able to walk down the hall and grab a fresh sandwich or soup is big. They've been hard to keep open during this downturn. You really feel for the kind of the mom and pop operators of those small businesses. But hopefully most landlords like us are working with them and trying to support them and keep them surviving, so that when the majority comes back, they're still there.
Yeah, it seems that you want the convenience of home. I can walk to the refrigerator. Let me see what's in there today. One of the things, I had read an article recently about how they had interviewed a number of people who said that they weren't going to come back unless they could find a place to work, that they could bring their animals, their dogs, their whatever. Have you heard people saying, is there any possibility for having dogs in this building, or have you heard any of that?
Not directly, but I think what I have seen, with our single-story buildings where you enter your own space, you park out front, there's no common shared space. That's kind of up to the tenant. I say up to the tenant. We do negotiate into the lease with some parameters around, cleanup and those kinds of things. But I think it's a different opportunity when you can control your own space and you're not sharing, common space, lobbies, atriums, cafeterias, that kind of thing. So I think it's more common there. But I think the having office space in the suburbs, you can run home over lunch and a 10-minute, 15-minute drive, and let the dog out, spend some time there, because we're all connected. You're still working from your phone, still answering things. You could even do a Zoom call and just have your camera off while you're heading home to let the dog out, and nobody needs to know it.
Exactly. I guess and I thought about it in particular because you had mentioned that you're seeing interest from out of state, California, and different places. And I know they've been doing dogs at work for a long, long time out there. Of course, they don't have winter. But I thought, oh, I wonder if somebody's going to move here and have that same expectation. And is there a certain kind of company? I mean, I suppose I think if somebody's coming in from California, it might be a tech company. Are you seeing a certain segment, or is it just kind of overall?
No, I think it is tech companies or med tech, medical device type companies that have specifically came out of Sunnyvale, California, have chosen Eden Prairie, or somewhere in the Northwest, but they're coming for the educated workforce, the quality of life, and obviously the cost of living and taxes is significantly less. They don't need to pay the employees as much, but a variety of reasons that they're moving to the Twin Cities. So I think it's a great opportunity for us as a state, and should promote that more, so that when they're looking across the country to have us in the top 3 of their choices anyway.
Well, and I would think, I mean, we are a rather educated community because we have universities and colleges and all of those things. So I would think that as long as they don't start looking in January, you have to warm them up a bit first, I would think that this would be really attractive to them. I mean, lifestyle and all of that, which is so important. And I would think, it's interesting, one of the things that I hadn't really thought about, but I have experienced, is the whole parking thing with downtown. I went to one of my clients. We actually did a video there. I was there for an hour and 15 minutes and it cost me $23.
Yeah,
I thought, wow, where do your workers park? Because it certainly is not in here, and I just thought parking has to be, I would think, part of the package. If somebody's used to now being at home and has all that freedom to come and go, you're not going to go in and out too many times when you're paying those kind of dollars. It's like you said, you come and you park yourself down. One of the sectors that I hear about that are looking to have offices again are lawyers, if they ever gave them up in the first place. Are there other sectors? Are you hearing this about law firms, about they need to have private spaces, but they want their own private spaces. When I think of a lawyer, I think of paperwork. And even though you may try to be paperless, I don't think it's possible in a law firm to be paperless exactly. So I'm curious to hear who's asking or thinking that they want their private office back.
Yeah, the kind of the activity I have right now, I would say that definitely private offices are popular. They're on their fit plan, that they may be coming out of 10-year-old space that already had private offices. And I think if maybe it was 2 years ago, they may have been convinced that you should get rid of the private offices and go to cubes and more open office concept. But I think considering what's gone on this last year, they're sticking with their current ratio of offices to cubes. But I can't say that there's one particular industry. Right now, I got a law firm that's all privates. I got a technology company that you would think would be all open office, and they're probably 60% offices. So I think you're right that it is, I don't want to say we're going backwards, but if you're used to offices, you're sticking with offices going forward versus the trend of getting rid of offices. But I don't know if people are going from open office to now privates, but definitely adding more space. The idea of benching and sharing spots, I think that trend is flattened or is on hold. We'll kind of wait and see. I think the biggest push is going to be in September when kids are back in school, and majority of the larger corporate tenants of ours will be coming back.
So are you seeing people wanting shorter leases so they can figure out what's going to happen?
It's been a variety. I think I've got, yeah, anywhere from 5 to 10 years right now with the deals I'm working on. The renewals have tried to keep it as a 1 to 2 year to kind of wait and see. But now, people are nervous about inflation and with office space, the asking rates haven't been affected. The TI dollars, the cost to do a build out has increased significantly. But I think tenants, although they want to wait and see what they're going to need, they're also aware that if there's an opportunity to lock in now, we might be in a long-term lease, be smart to do that, not knowing where inflation and if construction costs keep going up, interest rates are low. So right now, values of buildings are way up. If you're buying them now, you got to get these high rates, and so it'd be smart to renew long term. It's a matter of how comfortable you are, not knowing what your head count is going to be. But I think I said it earlier, the focus on office space as a commodity and saving a dollar and getting the best deal. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing tenants willing to pay the rate to get the build out they want and the location they want, because again, getting employees back in the office and working is more important than saving a buck.
This whole employee thing, which is, I agree. It's like they want them back and how it comes back and if they're full time or not. But it's interesting that I think we're in a time, not that companies haven't cared about their employees, but I think more than ever they are saying, what do my employees need? What do they want? Where do I have to be with getting them back to the office? I think it's just very interesting that employees have a lot more to say about the environment that they want.
I agree. Yeah, no, definitely hearing about consultants and surveys and asking employees but it's, yeah, as far as a trend and what everybody's doing, it's all different. It's going to take probably another year here to figure out what's going on, because as I mentioned earlier, it's the habits. These, are you going to allow employees to wear flip-flops and shorts to work? As I said, the law firm this morning, that's what they're wearing of all the industries. You wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing going forward is flexibility. It's employers, being flexible with their tenants or employees from where they're going to work and what their hours are going to be, what they're going to wear. Like you said, to go home, let the dog out, pick up kids from activities and do that kind of thing, but also flexible from a landlord's perspective to be, flexible with termination, expansion, downsizing, also flexible on, amenities and really staying with the times and recognizing what employees and companies need and being willing to, really work on that relationship and listen to the tenants and provide them what they need. And then I see flexibility, also flexibility with employees. They, if you look at in the news, these problems on airplanes and road rage and having to wait in line. Everybody's not used to waiting that. We're not used to doing that, and they're getting angry. So people gotta realize that you're not working at your kitchen table, you're not working on your couch. There's going to be traffic, there's going to be parking, and everybody's got to be patient and ease back into this.
One of the things, a couple of questions I had after what you said is, so are you finding people actually putting clauses into their lease about, I want to lock in 5 years, but if after 2 years, the whole market has changed about how my employees and what I need, are you finding that you're giving them escape clauses, or did that happen?
It's case by case. I mean,
Yeah.
it's depending on your ownership and what you're looking to do long-term. If you're trying to create value and sell a building within the next few years, having an escape clause doesn't do you any good, especially if it's a large tenant. But if you've got a smaller tenant and a variety of tenants in a building, and you have to do that now to get them in there with a termination clause and a termination penalty, you got to do it because somebody else will probably do it. So you got to work with the tenant. But I wouldn't say we're across the board providing those out clauses, because it does kind of hinder the value of your building, and if you're looking to sell it in the future. For us, not necessarily as important. We're more about income and getting things in place. You don't want to have too many tenants either expiring or have that risk of termination all in a short period of time. So you got to kind of stagger that stuff out and really strategize. But definitely back to the flexibility. Landlords need to provide something to help tenants out to get them in and get them satisfied. Otherwise, you're doing 1-2 year deals, and that doesn't create value either. So
Yeah. So the other one issue that is kind of on everybody's radar, and probably it's because it's a stay-at-home thing, is daycare. There are so many statistics about the women that are out of the workforce, and maybe permanently because daycare hasn't come back or isn't affordable or isn't. Do you hear tenants or people coming and saying, do you have a place for daycare close by? What do you know about that? So what are you hearing?
I can't say I've heard anyone mention daycare, but they do their own research. And again, we're South Eden Prairie and Bloomington. There's plenty of daycare opportunities, in and around these communities. So it probably is just not something that's being directly asked of me as the landlord. They're finding that out. They live in the community, so they already know where it's at, kind of thing. But makes me think about, though, having 3 kids at home myself and having worked from home. And I talk about this work-life balance, and we've definitely swung back to quality family time and learning to work together with kids on Zoom, and really taxing your home Wi-Fi, and trying to schedule things when kids aren't in school so that you can do your Zoom calls. At the end of the day, that's been great, and everybody's been patient with it. But the employees that choose to work from home, or companies that allow them to work from home, I think they're going to be less tolerant of dog barking in the background, or your camera, your screen freezing up on a board call or a important meeting after the end of the summer here. So I think you're going to see people coming back or being forced to come back for some of those reasons, but also trying to do both, working from home again with kids, letting the dog out, and doing work. I've just found that it's much healthier to be at the office or be at home. Yes, some flexibility in between, trying to handle both, but to do both of those well is not fair to either your company or your family. So I'm a strong proponent for back to the office, even if it's a certain period of the day, buckle down, and then when you're home, you're home. So
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to go to meetings in person after not having had them in person. And I don't know, because I thought, okay, we have Zoom and we're just to see people, but it's such a different thing when you're face to face. The collaboration is different, the spontaneity is different. The other thing is that one of the things that we have been doing is what we call employee engagement walls, which we've shown some video of and show more of. And it really is all about pictures of employees and, putting them in an interesting way. You only get one picture and somebody has to manage it, but showing people as real people outside of the office so that they are beginning to be seen as a person, having more to say about what their workspace is, but also realizing that they are missing something if they're not there with their colleagues. That I don't think even I personally realized how much you miss by not having that interaction. I mean, I've been in my showroom the whole time. So, and it's big enough and we've closed our building for a while and I go, a lot of social distance over here. But now that people are back in here working, it's like having a spontaneous moment when you're thinking about something doesn't mean you could hop on and Zoom at that exact moment. So it's just going to be interesting to see if companies have hybrid is, what does hybrid really mean in terms of meetings? And, it's what kind of facilities and meetings are we going to have if I have to be able to do Zoom and have people in the room all at the same time? I mean, I would think the needing to have up-to-date technology in terms of how you do Zoom and Wi-Fi and internet. I mean, it's just there's a lot more burden on the systems than there ever have been before, I would think.
Yeah. No, I think too, different personalities, with some of the Zoom calls I'm on, maybe work, maybe different boards. You got people that have great ideas that need to be shared and contribute, but they don't feel comfortable speaking into a camera on the laptop with, potentially 20, 40 people watching. And yet, if you have them in a room and you're talking one-on-one, that's more their speed and they can open up and feel comfortable sharing. But sometimes with the Zoom and the technology, they keep it to themselves and they don't share. Again, some of these great ideas that the technology format doesn't work for them.
Mm-hmm. And I think I find it harder to discuss an issue, having that interface and back and forth. I mean, it's like when you have Zoom, it's like somebody puts their hand up for their chat time. And, whereas if you're in a meeting, you just say, okay, I'm going to say, there's just it's a whole different way of working with one another.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I just go, so it's all just going to be interesting. And I think one of the things that you said, is that you will be waiting in lines again, the traffic will be awful again. And you just have to understand, as we all do, it's all a piece of the pie. It's all a piece of working and getting to work and being at work with one another. And even I was listening to a webinar last week, and this man who does commercial real estate kind of across the world said, I keep telling everybody, don't have too hard a plan because it'll probably change in 6 months. And I think that's what it is. We're going to get back and go, oh, well, maybe it's not this, but maybe it's this. And I think what would be interesting is the employers who have the most flexibility and can be nimble enough to say, oh, that didn't work. I mean, we like to make plans and we like them to last. And I don't know if that's going to really be the way it operates for the next couple of years.
Yeah. So the idea of winging it doesn't fly with a lot of CEOs. So they want to have a set plan and be able to budget and expect. And like you said, that's not really in the cards for the next couple of years as we let employees kind of dictate the direction of this. You still got to create some boundaries and some suggestions, and like you said, try things. But if you draw the line in the sand, I don't think that's going to work with today's employees and their expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time because we're going to have to learn things, be able to do things differently, and be able to go with the punches and say, okay, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And it maybe even as to how your space gets used, I don't know. It's like, are we all going to put furniture on wheels so that we can reconfigure everything wherever it needs to be? I don't know. It's just such an interesting time. Yeah. So what would you say, not that I'm going to go on forever here, but what would you say is the biggest change you've seen in the suburban market?
Oh, I think our single story product that maybe 2 years ago, even, and 2 to 5 years, really didn't get as much attention because it didn't have the amenities that maybe a mid-rise office building has, or as I said, everybody was looking to go downtown and be close to the millennials and the apartments and public transportation, light rail, et cetera, to now our busiest product is that single story space where you've got your own rooftop units, you can control your the health of your space. You get your own front door, you're not touching doorknobs or waiting in line for elevators. Ton of parking that's free right outside the front door. And then you've got this box with a high ceiling inside that is kind of a start from scratch, do whatever you want, get creative, and kind of create your own culture and environment there. So biggest change in the suburban is that interest in that single story flex or office space. And, not to say the mid-rise isn't as popular as well, but, and then the other one is seeing these companies from south of the river, which I didn't expect, was to say, we did what they call it, a scattergram. We look at all the zip codes of our employees and we're moving an office up closer to them so they don't have to drive as far. And the idea last time around was to save money and move out a little farther. Now it's the opposite. Let's pay the freight and get to where the employees want to be. So I'd say that's the biggest change. And then again, I keep reiterating those new habits. The idea of letting the dog out, being close to home. I talk about traffic, but it's when you can now come in at 10 o'clock and leave at 3, or come in at noon and leave at 8. It's that flexibility I think is here to stay, and so you can do more of that from the suburbs than you can buried in a parking ramp downtown. I think it's interesting too, just from my own circle of friends, the idea of going out for a happy hour after work. I think people have this need to get back into their bubble, their neighborhood connection, and so I'm seeing less happy hours. I'm seeing less, people with bars and restaurants closing at 10 o'clock. It's, even around us where we live, 10 o'clock, it's dead. People are already in these new routines where they're going home. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's probably a healthier lifestyle to do that. But it's just, human nature and new drive patterns and social habits and buying. I mean, people are buying more and more from home. So it's just, everything's changed. Everything has changed. So.
Isn't that true? I think we talked about before this, we talked about so many things that, well, eventually everybody work from home, eventually blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all of a sudden it wasn't eventually, it just all happened within a year, that everything has changed. And now we're trying to figure out what is our new normal and what do we want to be at. So being a person in the art world, I know you're one building that you have outdoor animal sculptures at your building, and I love it because it looks like a little forest there. It's actually so cool. I thought, do you have other buildings that have sculptures? I mean, there's an industrial park off of Industrial Boulevard in Edina where there's a sculpture kind of in every major building, and I thought, are you seeing any of that at all? And I have somebody that I'm working with now that we want to work on making that a piece of everybody's pie. But I thought, gee, I wonder if you have any other buildings that look like this.
At our 6625 West 78th Street in Bloomington and 494 Bush Lake Road, we do have a lot of green space with a fountain in the pond, and there are a couple sculptures out there. But that was when the building was first developed. That's you look at it through a different lens than I do with the art, but I'm sure it is things that the tenants appreciate and admire as they're walking through the grounds. But I'm not hearing that as a trend, more art outside, but it's,
I guess I'll have to work on
you gotta
that.
work that out.
Well, I think that part of it is that whole homey inviting, it's not just gonna be a box with a sidewalk up to the front with parking slots, that it needs to be, the personality needs to start outside the building and bring you into it. So I'll work on that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to hear some ideas and happy to look at it with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. So anything else you want to share that I haven't brought up, or?
No, I think it's just exciting times. I mean, change is good, and I've, me personally, this last year have enjoyed, that again, spending time with family at home and doing some extended travel with the family, and still being able to be connected and do work from wherever. But I'm excited now to see the interest and activity and in getting back to the office. And I know I'm coming in every day. Like I said, it's that trying to work from home with home distractions. I do prefer being at work and being at home and trying to have some separation between the two, which I think is important, because even people without kids, you can be on your phone, and there's no end time these days. So it's really
Yeah.
putting boundaries on yourself to keep yourself fresh and energized, because you don't want to burn out. And I think
Yes.
that's where office space can help prevent employees from doing that, create some
Yeah.
boundaries for when to work and when to not. So.
Exactly. Exactly.